Hello everyone, welcome to the Buzz the Prey Manga. Today we continue the latest Global Freeze chapter, rewritten and edited by me in English for a smooth reading experience. All visuals and story flow are personally edited to give you the best manga style storytelling. Support the original creator by checking the official manga. So let's dive right into the today's chapter.
Chapter 29:21. Faith could not absorb Joan of Arc, so she sang the contents of the grand ceremony even louder. Her copy of the Dead Sea Book rose into the air, its pages turning automatically with a whoosh. Then, one after another, pages of the grand ceremony, arranged in a standardized manner, flew out of the book like sharp blades. The densely packed, countless pages, imbued with a radiant power, surged toward the illusory light. The golden blade that burned everything, along with the pages of the Dead Sea Book, attacked the body of the phantom light. Huan Guang raised both palms forward, condensing a thick layer of supernatural energy shield to block the way. With a loud boom, golden flames transformed into a torrent, crashing fiercely against the supernatural shield, yet unable to penetrate the illusory light's defense. How could power gained through the aid of objects possibly defeat me? Huan Guang said calmly. But in the very next moment, when countless, billions of pages of the grand ceremony struck his supernatural shield, the pages of the book were like daggers embedded in an old tree, firmly nailed to it. At that moment, a peculiar energy fluctuation instantly expanded outwards. His originally thick and powerful supernatural shield began to shrink rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. She sealed my power. Huan Guang was somewhat surprised, because the ability that Wild Puppet hates most is the ability to seal. Joan of Arc's chanting grew louder. May the eternal God protect me and grant me the power to overthrow my sins, seal me into hell, and imprison me forever. This is the power of Joan of Arc, the Knight of War, seal. With the power of her unwavering and powerful faith, she suppressed all evil and heresy in her eyes under the glory of the grand ceremony. This power was something that Huan Guang simply could not withstand. His defenses were breached in an instant. He knew that when facing a direct confrontation, he chose to dodge to the side. At this moment, his gaze as he looked at the four apocalyptic knights before him finally turned serious. These four people, working together and empowered by their strong faith, were actually able to pose a threat to him. However, he was unable to absorb the power of faith. Because if one has an extremely devout and heartfelt trust in a particular sect and forcibly tries to absorb that power, it will backfire on oneself. Huan Guang had a bit of a headache. He suddenly regretted choosing such a group of extraordinary people as his opponents. But he had to stay here and kill them all. Because this team is already very far from the core of the experimental planet. Let's use the wild puppets to wear them down first. These 1,000 wild puppets are enough to give them a good beating. Huan Guang immediately summoned dozens of wild puppets to stand in front of him and ordered these wild puppets to charge at the four knights. Joan of Arc snorted coldly. The pages of the grand ceremony book above her head rustled as she reached out and pulled out dozens of pages, tucking them between her fingers. Then it suddenly shot forward. Splash! The moment the pages left her hand, they transformed into streaks of light that shot towards the desolate puppets. Then, it landed on the ground beside them, and in an instant, it formed one cage after another created with mental power, trapping the wild puppets tightly. The desolate puppets angrily attacked the psychic cage, even attempting to absorb the power of faith. But this power turned out to be the most deadly poison for them. Because the moment they absorbed this power, their control over themselves was rapidly stripped away. The wild puppets that were attacking the Templar Knights suddenly had clear eyes. They turned around, their eyes fixed on Huan Guang, their expressions revealing a hatred so intense they wanted to kill him. Huan Guang was completely stunned. How could this happen? How could this happen? His brain has now crashed. These desolate puppets, created with the Star Clan's most advanced technology, may be cannon fodder soldiers, but they certainly won't turn against us so easily. After all, their bodies contain the core of Drucker flesh and blood fused with causal technology. This substance can resist the influence of more than 99% of rule-based abilities. What kind of sect are you? Huan Guang's voice trembled slightly, even though he couldn't help it. He saw something he had never known before. A distant voice emanated from Pope Wiggins. We are the sect that will change the entire history of mankind. And you, join the glorious evolution. The moment Wiggins spoke, Huan Guang suddenly felt something within her body undergoing a controlled change. Thump, thump, his heart suddenly started racing. The Drucker core hidden in his chest began to resist his body. Causality. Huan Guang was so surprised that he couldn't speak, his expression as if he had seen a ghost. Just how powerful is this causal ability? It can make my physical body go out of control. Just as his body began to slip out of his control, the four knights seized the opportunity and charged at him. Countless pages of sacred texts, symbolizing the power of sealing, rained down from the sky, enveloping him in all directions. The mourning nun's lamentations bound him like shackles. It slowed down the flow of his spiritual energy and made his body stiff. As soon as he looked up, Ori's golden holy sword was already upon him. A moment later, Huan Guang's body began to disintegrate out of thin air. What eroded his body was not the golden holy sword of Ori, nor the raging fire, but an invisible and powerful force of faith. With a clanging sound, the flesh and blood core, fused with metal, fell to the ground. No one else dared to touch it, except for Joan of Arc, who wrapped it in a page from a ceremonial book. Then she devoutly offered it before Wiggins. Wiggins reached out his left hand to take it, and with a gentle squeeze of his palm, the flesh and blood core vanished into some unknown place. Joan of Arc praised with admiration, "Your Holiness, your power is truly great. These monstrous creatures, which are difficult for ordinary people to kill, have also been subdued under your divine radiance." Wiggins' face showed too many expressions, yet he remained as calm as ever. This is just the simplest soldier technology of the Star Clan, nothing special. The more troublesome ones are still in the depths of the universe. Let those winged people and dragons clear the way first. What we're looking for might be deep within this starry corridor. Arnold Ollie's face showed anxiety. We're too late. Will we miss it? Wiggins' eyes darted around, his gaze landing on Ollie's face, and then a meaningful smile appeared on his face. Yes, with their abilities, they can still do that. Chapter 29-22. It's your turn. Arnold Oleb immediately bowed and said, "As you wish." After Huan Guang was killed, the other desolate puppets were all sealed away by Joan of Arc in the simplest and most brutal way. This massive team is only about 1,000 kilometers away from the core area of the experimental planet. At this point, their progress was even comparable to Zhang Yi's. They will probably meet somewhere soon. The various ethnic groups descended upon the experimental planet, and 3 days had passed. More than 30% of the members of the alien force died as puppet masters. After all, the various tribes sent out superhumans, and although their strength was generally above that of Ipsilon, there were strong and weak individuals among them. Even as a Black Knight-level powerhouse, when initially facing the wild puppet, he was somewhat overwhelmed and found it difficult to protect the troops around him. It's important to know that not everyone has the ability to store their teammates in their shadow space like Zhang Yi. However, after going through the initial difficult battles, they gradually figured out the weaknesses of the Aragaki. We must either find a way to seal it away, preventing it from fighting again. Either you can keep your distance from it and avoid fighting it, so as not to cause the wild golem to undergo adaptive evolution. Among all the races, the most elite groups seized this opportunity and rushed towards the experimental planet. Furthermore, there are many allied forces such as Zhang Yi, Shunfeng, and Luo Qiao. Zhang Yi and his team are in the first tier. The space-time exploration capability is extremely powerful, which saved Zhang Yi and his team from many detours. After defeating the Blackbird, the journey became much smoother. Even if they occasionally encounter attacks from some scattered Type 1 abandoned puppet troops, they can easily deal with them. Along this journey, the biggest beneficiaries were Li Changgong and Zhu Ke. Two people working together can completely kill the Aragui and thus receive a large amount of creation reward. The difference index between the two people also increased by several thousand points. However, this is not the greatest gift. The greatest gift is raising the upper limit of their talents. Zhang Yi and the others followed the flow of time and space. Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen, on the other hand, continuously invaded the network in the surrounding area. Finally, they arrived at the dark domain located deep within the experimental planet, a place where nothing could be seen. It's called the Black Domain not because the area is shrouded in darkness, but because no matter what kind of alien or information technology you use to explore it, it's completely dark. Before approaching that area, Zhang Yi took a deep breath, feeling a bit nervous. He reminded everyone, "I have marked the path we took here. If you find anything wrong, do not hesitate and run away immediately." Everyone nodded, feeling both excited and a little nervous. Zhang Yi glanced at Shirkong and said, "Mr. Shirkong, you can lead the way." Time and space silently nodded, then closed its eyes and sensed the spatial structure around it. It then chose a direction and flew swiftly towards it. Zhang Yi and the others followed behind. However, just over 10 minutes later, they arrived at a very special area. This is the deepest part of the experimental planet. Contrary to everyone's expectations, instead of seeing the massive and complex experimental center they had imagined, they saw nothingness. There were no other physical objects in sight. It was as if there were a special starry sky. They stood in the void, watching streams of blue information flow before them, crisscrossing and weaving through the past from all directions. Everything was beautiful and magnificent, like a dream, so beautiful that it was intoxicating. Lu Karen's eyes were filled with fascination with technology as she watched the scene. With such complete data informatization, this technology is far ahead of us. It's simply unimaginable. Everything that was seen was recorded in real time, and these will be valuable research materials when it returns to Earth in the future. When everyone looked up, there was nothing else in sight. "There's nothing here. Is it all just information feeds?" Zhang Yi frowned and said in confusion, "Even the most advanced technology needs a physical form to carry this information, right? Even the Heavenly Palace needs a physical, spherical building." He did not believe that the depths of the experimental star were completely information-based or quantitative. After carefully sensing the space-time, he pointed to a certain area in front of him and said, "This is the direction leading to the true core of the experimental star. I think that the civilization here has developed to an extreme level, and in some areas of information exchange, it can already be wirelessly controlled. However, in the most crucial location, I felt something similar to a control terminal." Zhang Yi glanced at Shirkong, nodded, and said, "Mr. Shirkong, please lead the way." Time and space frowned, helplessly spreading his hands and saying, "In the deeper areas, I can't sense anything anymore. I can't go any further." Chaos Pavilion. Ever since we entered the experimental planet, I have been your guide. Here, I would like to make a request that is not excessive. You possess the strongest defense among all of us, so I hope you will lead the way from now on. This request is reasonable. After all, no one knows what kind of danger lurks deep within the experimental planet. When it comes to survival skills, no one can compare to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi lowered his eyes and thought about it carefully, then nodded and said, "Okay, no matter what, I am also a core member of the team." He very carefully took out the sword of eternal judgment. However, at that moment, a sudden change occurred. An extremely powerful energy burst forth from the sword, like a vast galaxy, with streaks of light shooting into the sky. That power transformed into two blue, strange long swords, instantly enveloping Zhang Yi and the two from the time-space dimension. Layer upon layer, they transformed into an enormous arena. Everything in the space is changed. It is no longer the scene inside the experimental star as before. Looking at this scene from a time-space perspective, his pupils suddenly contracted. He had never seen Zhang Yi use such methods before. Shirkong looked at Zhang Yi in astonishment and asked, "Chaos Pavilion, what do you mean by doing this?" Zhang Yi said calmly, "As a spatial ability user, you should know one thing. Whoever gains the initiative and drags the opponent into their own territory will gain dominance in the space-time power struggle, right? The space-time expression is somewhat distorted. He instantly distanced himself from Zhang Yi, and his gaze turned icy. Chaos Pavilion, I don't understand what you mean by doing this. Chapter 29-23 Keep Pretending. Zhang Yi suddenly launched an attack, defying expectations of time and space. His voice was low as he questioned, "Are you going to violate the rules of the alliance of all races and take action against them? What good would it do you to kill me? There has never been any conflict between the Golden Feather clan and your 6 generations. Aren't you afraid this will be exposed? And you even say you're so confident you can kill me here? Think about the consequences. Don't make a mistake." Zhang Yi stared at him coldly, then suddenly sneered, her lips curling into a mocking smile. "Golden Feather Clan, how long are you going to keep up this act? It's time to reveal your true identity, isn't it? Commander of the Wild Puppet." At this moment, outside, Zhang Yi suddenly appeared and dragged him and the two from the time-space into the infinite sword domain, which startled Shunfeng, Luo Qiao, and the others. "Hey, I didn't see it clearly just now. Did the chaos trap space-time?" "No, when I looked at the void, it trapped the chaos." "What's going on between these two? Why did they suddenly start fighting?" Not only them, but everyone present was startled by this sudden turn of events. But Yang Xinxin said to them at this moment, "Don't panic. Brother is just going to deal with the hidden dangers around him." There was no surprise on her face, and Zhou Kuer and the others around Zhang Yi also looked indifferent. Only Fatty Su and Uncle Yu looked on with surprise. Zhang Yi did not inform them beforehand, fearing that their acting skills were not good enough and would expose his intentions. King Arthur was somewhat surprised and asked, "You mean there's a hidden danger nearby? Does that mean you're referring to that Golden Feather clan's dimension?" Yang Xinxin nodded and said, "That's right. That guy should also be a member of the Reca." "What?" Even Shunfeng and Luo Qiao were shocked. "That guy is Reca?" Luo Qiao rested her chin on her hand and suddenly realized, "You mean he and that puppet commander who appeared before are of the same type?" Unfortunately, they never saw what the blackbird looked like from beginning to end. They only learned about the existence of such a creature, which possessed intelligence and could control a type of desolate puppet, through Zhang Yi's description. Shunfeng, holding a pair of enormous pincers, said coldly, "From the very beginning, I felt that Chaos's methods were very strange. Why did he so easily accept that guy from the timeline and join their team? Did he already know his true identity back then?" Upon hearing this, Yang Xinxin's eyes revealed a barely perceptible hint of sarcasm. These guys' intelligence is far inferior to her brother's. No, actually, from beginning to end, she and Zhang Yi's brother didn't think that much at all. But anyone who knows him will understand one thing. Zhang Yi never easily trusts anyone. Only those who have shared life and death with him can become his partners. People like Shunfeng and Luo Qiao, who helped him resolve life-or-death crises, only gained his approval and were able to walk with him. But even these people cannot gain his wholehearted trust. In this world, Zhang Yi believes that the only people he truly trusts are his family and friends, those who have shared life's experiences and journeyed with him to this day. This is why, even when the performances of people like Uncle Yu and Fatty Su are out of touch with the current version, Zhang Yi is never short of talented people around him who are willing to become his brothers. Zhang Yi would rather spend more resources to cultivate Fatty Su and Uncle Yu than accept outsiders. Trust is more precious than gold. Within the infinite sword domain, holding the eternal judgment sword, Zhang Yi coldly gazed at time and space and said calmly, "There has never been any interaction between them and the Golden Feather clan. But D&D is clear on one thing. The Star Clan, the Golden Feather Clan, or the Feathered People all belong to the Fourth Era's Arc People. When you approached me in this body, I already considered whether you were a survivor left behind by the Arc People, or whether you were one of the biological weapons they created." Seeing that he could no longer continue to pretend, the struggle and grievance on Shirkong's face vanished instantly, replaced by an extreme indifference. "When did you discover your true identity? When did they discover your true identity?" Zhang Yi smiled faintly, Of course now. What? Time and space-time were stunned. You can't even confirm whether it's Doya or Aragaki? Zhang Yi said calmly, I've already said it. I will not suspect anyone indiscriminately. Therefore, my doubts about you have never disappeared. If someone suddenly appears around you, no matter what reasonable reason they have, you will be on high alert. Especially after seeing your appearance alongside the Black Bird, my suspicions about you deepened even further. You're right, there's no evidence to prove that you're also a wild puppet. But never needs evidence to do things. He raised the sword, pointing it towards time and space. If I guess wrong, I'll just cut you half to death, then heal you and finally apologize. But if you guess correctly, you'll die. Reason? What sense does reason have in this world? Zhang Yi believes in the principle that might makes right. For the sake of his own and his companion's safety, he would rather kill 10,000 innocent people than let one suspicious person go free. After understanding Zhang Yi's logic, time and space fell into a long silence. Finally, he slowly uttered, the sixth generation is indeed the group with the lowest sense of morality in all eras. Truly, the race was created by combining the weaknesses of 100 schools of thought. A series of black lines appeared on Zhang Yi's forehead. The phrase, to gather the shortcomings of all schools of thought, sounds a bit too insulting, doesn't it? But upon closer reflection, it seems there's nothing wrong with it. Since the beginning of the universe, there has probably been no race more vulnerable than the sixth generation. It doesn't matter, you're going to die here today anyway. Are you sure you can kill him? A rhetorical question about time and space. Zhang Yi said, I'll kill you the same way I killed your friend before. Time and space suddenly realized and said, so all your previous claims about using forbidden techniques and getting injured were fake. He sighed deeply, looking at Zhang Yi with a playful glint in his eyes. But have you considered something? Oh, tell me about it, I'll listen. When Blackbird attacked you before, why didn't you take that opportunity to join forces with him and wipe you all out? Chapter 29:20 For the Law of Cause and Effect. Zhang Yi frowned. He also wanted to know the answer to this question. Today, unless the opponent is at the queen level, anyone who enters his infinite sword domain will surely die. Time and Space said, because these second-type Aragu are not very familiar with each other to begin with. Moreover, I don't want to accept the commands given to me by that dull and boring artificial intelligence system on this planet. Of course, the most important reason is that it is the most powerful existence among all Type 2 Aragu. A strange glint flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. He didn't care about the relationship between the two types of Aragyoku. Artificial intelligence rigidly follows the commands of a bygone civilization, while these Type 2 abandoned puppets possess intelligence. What would they do if they awoke after sleeping for billions of years to find their civilization destroyed? It is really difficult to judge using common sense. But all of this is no longer relevant. Zhang Yi has been released. In his eyes, beams of light flashed, and the void reflected in them was actually cut through by extremely thin and long beams of light. In an instant, the entire region containing space-time was separated into millions of tiny spaces. Dimensional connection, instantaneous spatial cutting technique, directly within the body of space and time. Zhang Yi, however, did not see that the body of time and space was cut into countless fragments. The removed string of space-time caused the light to distort violently. It was as if the canvas in which that space was situated had been forcefully crumpled. However, it was held in place by some force around its space-time body, preventing it from shattering completely. Shirkong coldly stared at Zhang Yi and said, having been by your side for so long, I've pretty much figured out your strength. I really don't know how you killed the Blackbird. But there's one thing I'm not lying to you about. My name really is Time and Space. This also represents the power that the monk possesses. Around his body, a powerful spatial force rapidly expanded. Within the space where Zhang Yi had removed the fundamental elements, a new layer of supporting force was formed, lifting his body. By the way, let me tell you what makes you different from other Type 2 Araga. They were all criminals who had committed serious crimes, and they had only one choice: death or being transformed into a goblin. but is different. Is part of a scientific research team, means to modify oneself. Therefore, my power is far greater than theirs. The eyes of time and space suddenly opened. A powerful spatial fluctuation, like a tide, swept wildly outwards from him in all directions. The sound of ocean waves seemed to echo in my ears as two different spatial forces collided. Zhang Yi's pupils suddenly contracted because he felt that his infinite sword domain was actually trembling. If I'm not mistaken, domain-type skills are not your forte. Therefore, to try to confine oneself to a realm at this level is nothing but delusion. Zhang Yi does not deny this. Infinite sword domain is just a simple spatial sealing technique. If you encounter someone with the same level of spatial power, it is indeed easy for them to break through your defenses. What he needs is not to trap the other party for a long time. Shirkong smiled and stared at Zhang Yi, slowly saying, "Next we will." His voice suddenly froze on the spot. It wasn't because there were certain things that prevented him from saying the rest of the sentence. And because in that instant, Zhang Yi made time stand still. "I don't want to listen to all this nonsense from you." Zhang Yi raised his hand and immediately unleashed a deadly move. The two were very close to each other. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Yi was in front of his opponent. Then he raised the sword and slashed it straight down at the opponent's body. Just as the sword was about to touch the body of time and space, a strange phenomenon occurred. In that still space-time, he actually saw the eyes of time and space suddenly turn. The space in front of me suddenly distorted. Within the absolutely still space-time, a strange and monstrous force forcibly dragged the body of space-time away from the side. All of this was beyond Zhang Yi's imagination. As the sword fell, one arm of time and space was severed. And in the next instant, time stopped. Shirkong looked at his severed left arm. The entire arm, along with the shoulder, had been cut off. He was just a hair's breadth away from losing his head. A look of seriousness finally flashed in his eyes. "Time has stopped? You've actually reached that level." Zhang Yi took a deep breath, and her gaze towards him became serious. Time and space, I never thought that in this world I would actually meet a second one, who, like me, possesses the dual attributes of time and space. Time reigns supreme, space is king, rules are paramount, cause and effect are emperor. In the realm of different forces, these four forces are considered unsolvable. There is almost no absolute restraint between them. It all comes down to who can gain the upper hand first. However, once the opponent gains the initiative, if you want to turn the tide and reverse the battle, you need to use the same attribute to weaken the opponent's attack power. Just now, the fact that he dodged his fatal blow proves that he also possesses the power of time. After losing an arm, the attitude of time and space was no longer as relaxed as before. A weapon based on causality. Where did your sword come from? You don't need to know. You just need to know that it will kill you. As soon as Zhang Yi finished speaking, he activated the Boundless Realm, forcibly pulling the other party in front of him. Then the Eternal Judgment sword slashed fiercely at the opponent at an extremely fast speed. Whoosh! Time and space vanished right before his eyes. Two immense spatial forces are colliding and vying for control of this area. Whenever Zhang Yi tried to pull it to his side, that spatial force would immediately flee. They could sense the fluctuations in space, and they could sense the path the other party took when folding space. From a two-dimensional perspective, the two people appear to be standing on the same carpet. Both sides have the opportunity to fold the carpet, thereby shortening the distance between them on the ground. Therefore, at this time, whoever has stronger spatial control will have the opportunity to leave. One arm of space-time was directly severed. He quickly activated the power of his physical body, and a second, brand-new arm grew. The newly grown arm was completely unable to function. Zhang Yi sneered. From the perspective of cause and effect, the judgment has already been made on your body. That is, you only have one right side. Even if you were to create a physically strong arm, you still wouldn't be able to control it. Chapter 29-25 The material of an upside-down world. It doesn't matter. I can still kill you with just one arm. With a cold gaze, He raised his hand and made a sweeping motion in the void, revealing a crescent-shaped streak of light. With a gentle pull of his right hand, he summoned a series of arrows formed from silver energy. The power of time was rapidly operating in Zhang Yi's left eye. He could sense the power of time contained within that arrow. The second hand of time. Zhang Yi directly activated his prophetic ability to predict the attack that was about to be launched against. However, the situation was completely disrupted. All that could be vaguely seen was that it was an arrow that absolutely could not be shot. However, due to the interference of the two beings' space-time causality, Zhang Yi was unable to see their true abilities. Without hesitation, Zhang Yi immediately distanced himself from Dui Inguk. Go against the tide. Go! An arrow of time and space was launched, piercing the sky like a silver moonlight, shining down from the heavens onto the earth. Zhang Yi dodged in time. Looking back, the arrow had fallen into his boundless realm, and wherever it passed, all the long swords formed by his supernatural power shattered like moonlight. Those magically enhanced swords eventually vanished into nothingness in a strange way, disappearing into the air. The ability to return everything to its original state. Zhang Yi recognized the characteristics of this ability at a glance. Everything has its basic attributes. For example, the spatial abilities of the are best suited for sealing off and traversing. Time, on the other hand, possesses three basic abilities: prediction, reversal, and stillness. So, if he were to be shot by the reverse arrow of time and space at this moment, the direct consequence would be that his body would likely be returned to its previous state. This is equivalent to a drop in rank. By then, he probably won't be able to contend with time and space. Both of their weapons could inflict fatal damage on the opponent. Every confrontation between them now becomes extremely dangerous. Zhang Yi hadn't initially expected that the ability of the enemy would be so much stronger than that of the Black Bird. He had never devoured any of the superhumans, but was able to see through the characteristics of their abilities simply through a short period of observation. That's truly amazing. However, Zhang Yi did not forget the characteristics of as a wild puppet. The longer the struggle with the enemy lasts, the more the enemy will be able to fully adapt to his abilities, putting him at a disadvantage. Then let's see if you can absorb this power. With a loud boom, Zhang Yi pushed his power to its limit, and the core furnace of the God Destroyer armor burned fiercely, enhancing his strength. Behind him, the gate to the netherworld burst open like a giant black hole. The pitch-black, seemingly all-consuming antimatter surged forth in a viscous and eerie manner, wrapping around Zhang Yi's entire body and binding it to the enormous black sword. The underworld is destroyed. He unleashed a fierce slash with his sword. The surging antimatter, like a roaring dragon, surged upstream, sweeping across the entire space and engulfing space-time. Faced with this special power, time and space merely frowned slightly. What he fears least is energy attacks with the elemental attribute. It can be quickly absorbed and adapted by his body, thus preventing it from causing a devastating blow. How could you be so stupid as to use this kind of attack on a... Or are you just stalling for time? He opened his left and right hands, and a huge vortex appeared in the palms. He didn't dodge or avoid it. Instead, he directly absorbed the terrifying torrent of antimatter into his own body. When Zhang Yi saw his action, a barely perceptible smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. After encountering the timeline, all the battles he experienced were against the wild puppet. When dealing with the wild puppet, he adopted the simplest and most brutal method, forcibly sealing it behind the gate to the netherworld, without ever drawing his sword to engage in a pointless battle. The space-time they inhabit is completely unclear. They possess a third ability beyond time and space. Time and space-time have no idea what they are facing. Space-time forcibly absorbed that terrifying torrent of antimatter into its own body, attempting to convert this power into its own. But the instant that power surged into his body, his face turned deathly pale, and he let out a shrill scream. No! What the hell is this thing? He abruptly severed the absorption of antimatter, using his immeasurable spatial abilities to erect an incredibly thick barrier in front of him, forcibly cutting off the tsunami-like torrent. At this moment, Zhang Yi grinned, revealing a highly sarcastic smile. Immerse yourself in the ocean of Dirac. After witnessing Suzaku's abilities and how he could suppress Aragaki, he understood one thing. His antimatter power is the best weapon to counter the wild puppet. Because antimatter represents something that has completely opposite properties to matter and has the same mass. Space-time forcibly absorbed it into its own body, attempting to seize its power. Unexpectedly, the power of antimatter not only could not be absorbed by him, but instead collided with his own power and annihilated him. He screamed and flew backwards into the distance. A large number of high-energy photon rays emanated from his body. What Zhang Yi saw through the tactical goggles was an incomparably magnificent and spectacular scene. When ordinary superhumans encounter this thing, they can only forcibly neutralize it using supernatural energy. You actually dared to absorb it into your body. That's quite courageous. Suddenly, the space-time continuum appeared from afar, his body emitting large amounts of black smoke, and terrifying holes appeared one after another in his chest. He was breathing heavily, staring intently at Zhang Yi. What exactly is this power you're using? Could it be? Zhang Yi interrupted him, saying, "It should be as you imagine, just like you think it is." The sword of eternal judgment, wrapped in antimatter, formed a terrifying black sword. Both the sword itself and antimatter are the best means to counter the wild puppet. Since you dared to attack me, it means you were fully prepared. You don't really think I'd fight an unprepared battle, do you? These 3 months are enough time for him to think things through, especially after learning from the fighting styles of Lee Changgun and Suzaku. He had an epiphany. The Araku's pride in its devouring ability, due to its overwhelming power, fostered their blind confidence, ultimately leading to its downfall. Several years ago, in the most devastating battle Zhang Yi experienced, he also used this method to kill an opponent who had just entered the realm of Ipsilon. Chapter 29-26 The Dragon Burial Annihilation Time and Space coldly looked at Zhang Yi, his eyes flashing with anger. The power on your body is exactly the same as that of the Drucker people. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yi's pupils constricted sharply. Druckers? You mean, you've only ever seen Druckers possess this kind of power? It comes from the power of the Netherworld and has existed since the moment the power of the Netherworld awakened. At that time, Zhang Yi didn't know what this power was. He only knew that it existed behind the portal to the self-space and could be used by his will. Later, as the value of the difference between the two became higher and higher, and the level of contact with the world became stronger and stronger, he realized that this came from the dark side of the universe, the power of the matter in the universe. As of now, I have not seen many people who possess the same attribute power as me. However, when he came into contact with the angry Samuel, he vaguely felt that Samuel's power was very similar to his own. Perhaps it was for this reason that, back on the moon, I was favored by Samuel and granted a very special power, like a seed of power. It took root and sprouted within Zhang Yi. As of now, Zhang Yi doesn't know what the thing Samuel left in her body is for, but so far there haven't been any negative effects. Also told Fuxi ancestor about this matter when he went to the dragon group. Fuxi told that there was no need to panic on the day of depravity. If one cannot grow strong enough to counter the advance of the Drucks, the seeds sown by Samuel, whether they exist or not, are irrelevant, and if that power is used well, it might be able to help you reach a higher level. Zhang Yi stopped thinking about it after that. However, he felt that he had become more and more in control of the Netherworld. The words from the time and space made my heart tremble violently. If we're talking about which race in the entire universe understands the Druckers the best, it has to be the Star Clan. What's the point of you and me having similar strength to the Druckers? Shirkong stared intently at Zhang Yi, his eyes filled with obvious turmoil. This power is something that ordinary Druck people cannot possess, because it belongs to the first of the 7 kings of Druck, Samuel. I understand. I know why the Creator created you. The 6th race, this weak, greedy, and morally bankrupt race. His words were filled with contempt for the 6 people. That's the bone in my bones. a deep hatred for the Druckers. According to the widely accepted theory among many ethnic groups, the creation of the sixth human was a fusion of the genes of the Drucker people, but the incredibly powerful physical bodies and near-immortal life force of the Drucker people were removed, leaving only boundless desires and greed. Suddenly, Zhang Yi thought of looking at the 10-stone slab images in front of him. A bold guess emerged in my mind. Perhaps from his ancestors, he possessed a genetic trait similar to that of the wrathful Samuel, which is why he had a 1 in 10 million chance of awakening the power to control the netherworld. Or perhaps this awakening of power is related to rebirth. However, Zhang Yigan had no time to think about these messy matters. Right now, there's only one thing I need to do, and that is to destroy the current timeline. Go to hell. Like stirring up a huge, turbid ocean, he suddenly swung the eternal judgment sword in his hand forward. Rumble, a thunderous roar, like a tsunami, resounded, and a terrifying torrent of ghostly energy erupted from the enormous black hole behind us. They are viscous and dark, and even light is swallowed up when it is near them. In the blink of an eye, a 10,000-meter-long barrier condensed beside Zhang Yi, making anyone who looked at it feel as if their spirit had fallen into an abyss. Netherworld, Dragon Burial Annihilation. With a flick of Zhang Yi's sword, the enormous, colossal material dragon roared and surged towards the void, tearing through space-time. The dragon's movements were very predictable, sealing off all space within the infinite sword domain, giving no chance for escape or evasion. Present, time and space may be aware of this, but it is clear that there is no other way but to attack. He grasped a beam of light in the void with one hand. That light is condensed from the sovereignty of time and space, and can be transformed into any kind of weapon or into the ultimate defense. Selflessness is the ultimate measure. With a flick of his blade of light, a buzzing sound echoed in the void. Centered on him, one spatial barrier after another emerged, like flowers blooming in spring, layer upon layer, densely packed, forming 3,000 unbreakable spatial barriers. The two ghostly dragons crashed violently into the spatial barrier, and the two different forces were eroding each other. Soon, the enormous netherworld dragon transformed into a viscous liquid, tightly enveloping the spatial barrier. Zhang Yi clearly felt that the barriers of the void were being eroded away. As a fellow top-tier spatial attribute user, Zhang Yi was very clear about what this spatial barrier was. It's nothing more than folding the canvas of the universe into a fold, forming a small world within a large world. However, as long as the impact force is strong enough, it can completely break through it, just like an iron. Smoothing out wrinkles on clothes. Currently, the two are fiercely vying for control of this space. If space-time cannot destroy the infinite sword domain in a short period of time, then space-time will be completely at a disadvantage in the battle. Right now, if time and space want to turn the tide in this battle, there is only one option, that is to unleash a higher dimensional power to kill Zhang Yi's body. Just as Zhang Yi was thinking this, suddenly, cracks burst forth from the huge, dark sphere that was wrapped around it. A dazzling white light burst forth from it, eventually bursting the entire black sphere apart with a deafening roar. They escaped from the constraints of time and space. However, this kind of energy consumption is enormous in terms of space-time, but Zhang Yi can accept it completely, because when matter collides with all matter in this world, both have equal mass and equal energy, and when they meet, they release an extremely terrifying amount of energy. In other words, when a player uses 1 unit of material to attack another player, the opponent needs to consume at least 2 units of material to counteract the attack in order to ensure that they will not suffer damage. If this continues, the scales of victory will tip completely in Zhang Yi's favor. Having escaped the confines of time and space, it seemed that a protracted battle would be of no benefit to it, so it no longer hesitated and chose to strike directly. Chapter 29-27. A time traveler's fair fingers gracefully traced a circle of light in the void, forming a giant bow. The next moment, a white arrow shot out from his palm. He aimed at Zhang Yi, drew his bow and knocked an arrow and slowly said, "You can stop time to kill me, but next, I will launch an attack that you absolutely cannot defend against as a counterattack." Zhang Yi's eyes suddenly narrowed. The opponent's attack announcement clearly indicated that Genro was not afraid of being informed in advance. But at this moment, he was in a state of absolute defense. The outer layer is the Taishu bathing robe, the inner layer is the god-destroying battle armor, and the defensive layer formed by the fibers extended from the divine refinement, along with the close-fitting armor, is a battle armor created by the Sand Raider civilization of the Land of Combustion and the technology left behind by the engineers of the Ihan clan. The layer provides absolute defense. Unless the opponent is at the queen level, the root cannot be broken in one hit. Therefore, the opponent's ability is not the elemental power of the ordinary three-dimensional world, but an attack from a higher dimension. Then we have no choice but to fight. Zhang Yi activated the second hand of time again to predict what kind of attack the opponent would launch. But he saw that after the other side drew his bow and shot an arrow at him, everything he saw turned into thousands of afterimages, foreshadowing countless possibilities for the future. The rules of time were disrupted, giving rise to countless possibilities for the future and completely disrupting Zhang Yi's predictions. Zhang Yi could only concentrate fully, gathering power once more behind his netherworld river in preparation for launching an attack. But time and space simply watched him, unmoved. He wasn't very fast at drawing his bow and knocking the arrow. Unless the arrow reaches the speed of light, it will absolutely not hit Zhang Yi, because he can foresee the future. Just as the bowstring was finally released in time and space, the arrow abruptly disappeared before their eyes. With this arrow, the people will rebel. His cold words sounded like a verdict. Even with only one arm, his attitude remained aloof. Zhang Yi didn't know what the other party had done, but in an instant, he suddenly felt a chill run through his body, as if some kind of primal power had been drawn away from him. In an instant, a feeling of weakness came over me. His personal intelligent combat system immediately alerted him. Warning: your body energy level is rapidly declining. His ability index was clearly displayed on the tactical helmet. It had been reduced by as much as 5,000 points from 65,000 points not long ago, and had dropped to the level of 60,000 points. This immediately reduced his fighting ability. Zhang Yi was completely stunned. He clearly didn't see or feel anything, so how could his combat power suddenly drop so much? Could it be that the other party is able to manipulate time? Some terrible thoughts appeared in Zhang Yi's mind, but he immediately rejected them completely. Based on his understanding of two methods to freeze time, the first step is to accelerate oneself infinitely to the speed of light. It's not about slowing down time in the universe, but about achieving a state of stillness relative to the universe. The implementation of this method mobilizes not only the power of time, but also the power of space. If an ordinary human were to travel at the speed of light, their body would have long been torn into the smallest particle state by the terrifying force. The second method is to lower the temperature to absolute zero, freezing the movement of all molecules in a region. The principle behind Fremont's Morana ability is the same. However, it is only close to absolute zero and cannot truly make space-time in a region truly stand still. However, neither of these two methods can bypass his prediction of the second hand of time, because, strictly speaking, that is a physical attack. So the other party didn't freeze time, but connected his energy with Zhang Yi's energy from an incredible angle and made Zhang Yi's body regress to its previous state. Time and space remained expressionless, continuing to draw his bow and knock an arrow in midair, ready to fire the second arrow at any moment. I have already told you, I am the strongest among the type Eriku. Your abilities are certainly interesting, but at the level of the Black Knight, I've never encountered a worthy opponent. The sixth arrow was shot out of thin air. Zhang Yi's superpower index was reduced by as much as 10,000 points this time. This ability is absolutely insane. However, Zhang Yi didn't know how to defend himself, because he couldn't even defend himself and couldn't see how the other party launched the attack. After firing 2 arrows, Shirkong's expression clearly showed signs of fatigue. This ability was extremely difficult for him. Zhang Yi even felt that his skin was starting to look a bit old, and his hair had become more silvery gray. In an instant, he suddenly realized something. Holding his sword, he spoke to him across the void. In your current state, do you still have a way to fight back? The sword in his hand, cold and merciless, was swung fiercely forward. I'm going to tell you a principle now. The gap between a god-level civilization and a lower-level civilization is not simply a matter of a slight difference in energy levels. It also involves the suppression of rules. At that very moment, Zhang Yi suddenly closed his eyes, and everything before him fell into stillness once more. The entire space fell into complete stillness. Zhang Yi's body, including his, stood like a statue. His spirit slowly emerged from his body. The power of the pendulum's hour hand, what you hold in your heart, will surely come to pass. Only human longing can travel through time and space back to the past. Zhang Yi turned around, looked at the frozen space-time in midair, and glanced at his own frozen body. Then, with just a slight thought, time in the entire universe began to flow backward in his eyes. The human spirit is a fragment of ether, originating from a higher dimension. Therefore, they perceive the three-dimensional space in front of them much like humans watch a TV series, where they can freely drag the progress bar to rewind and fast-forward. However, Zhang Yi's own etheric energy was still too small. In the vast ocean of ether, he was just a tiny ball of light. He could only look back on the past for a mere 5 minutes. But all of this is enough. With just a thought, the image of the entire universe began to flow backward in his eyes. During this time reversal process, he saw 2 glowing arrows, one in front and one behind, shooting towards his body. At this moment, Zhang Yi finally understood how those arrows had hit his body. Because their roots are not beings of the third dimension, their physical bodies cannot sense their existence. Chapter 29-28. Towards the end at this moment, Zhang Yi is in the state of ether. He cannot change anything in this universe. He can only observe as an observer. He couldn't even cut a single hair or blow away a speck of dust, but he is able to sever everything, a power that uses time and space as its thread and cause and effect as its boundary. For example, those 2 arrows that were shot at his past self. With a single breath, the 2 arrows that had been aimed at him vanished silently in midair. Like dandelions, after doing all this, Zhang Yi returned to his original body. The timeline has been reset to normal. Zhang Yi felt a sharp, needle-like pain in her head. Using his ability to remember things is also a huge burden for him, as he is not yet able to operate it on his own. Perhaps one day, when he reaches the level of a king, or even the stronger Omega level, he will be able to roam freely throughout the past and future history of the entire universe. At that very moment, Shirkong had already swung his sword and charged at him. With his superpower index of 68,000, killing Zhang Yi, whose superpower index was 50,000, was as easy as taking candy from a baby. The sword, formed from the power of space and time, slashed fiercely at the space where Zhang Yi was located from thousands of meters away. The void twisted, space trembled, as if black holes were being created out of thin air, mercilessly devouring everything in the path of the sword light. However, as expected, the scene of Zhang Yi being easily killed by him did not occur. When his sword light swept past Zhang Yi's body, it was easily swallowed up by a barely perceptible ripple. Almost at the same time, he found himself suddenly appearing in front of Zhang Yi from thousands of meters away. What? The timeline has been determined, and his rebellion against the common people has struck Zhang Yi twice, so Zhang Yi's power has now been completely suppressed. That moment of carelessness caused him to lose control of the space. This also allowed Zhang Yi to activate the boundless realm and pull him in front of him. Then, the sword of eternal judgment slashed down fiercely at his body. Everything happened too suddenly. When encountering something beyond one's own understanding, even something as powerful as space-time cannot react immediately. He subconsciously activated his ability to reverse the fate of all living beings. An array of light burst from his fingertips, shooting towards the sword in Zhang Yi's hand, attempting to restore it to its most primitive material state. When the white light touched the black blade, it disintegrated like countless vines. The divine forged fibers wrapped around the sword lost their black color and transformed into the body of the Green Knight. Boss, But then Lulu's silver longsword ignored his power of time and slashed straight down with a pft. His well-trained body and his prized armor were shattered by Zhang Yi's sword. The long sword passed through his neck and then slashed diagonally toward the other side of his waist. They actually severed half of his torso and his entire lower body from his body. A familiar feeling reappeared. The almost immortal body of time and space suddenly discovered that most of its body had completely lost control. He knew he had lost. His eyes were filled with confusion. He can accept failure, but he cannot accept that his failure is unreasonable. His ability should have already taken effect on Zhang Yi, but the state the other party was in didn't seem to have been weakened at all. How on earth did you do that? At this point, he was left with only his head, connected to part of his chest cavity. The flesh was a strange, dark red, like countless worms writhing and twisting, trying to huddle together, but they can no longer contact their previous bodies. Zhang Yi looked at him calmly and said, "If you really want to know, there is a reason." Then let's talk about time management. It's all up to you. You can travel between the past and the future, and sever all ties you have with. Upon hearing Zhang Yi's explanation, time and space's pupils slowly dilated. He finally understood why he had lost to Zhang Yi, but his gaze quickly calmed down, and a bright smile appeared on his lips. As expected, you are the best. Fate guided you to meet me, and ultimately arranged for you to completely end my life. This might be the best arrangement for us. Zhang Yi didn't have time to waste talking to him, because things could get complicated if he waited too long. He stepped forward and slashed through the air with his sword, completely splitting the body of the time-space being in two, revealing the flesh and blood core of Drucker. Once cause and effect were sealed, all the flesh and blood connected to the law of cause and effect scattered like countless pieces of flesh, as if a rain of flesh and blood had fallen. In its final moments, time and space chose to face death with equanimity. Although he could continue to earn money, it would be meaningless now, perhaps for him, from the moment he lost the right to be born a Star Clan, chose to sacrifice himself for the experiment, and became a Type 2 wild puppet. The meaning of his life had been entirely for the great cause of the Star Clan. But what is the point of his life if his tribe is wiped out? To die at the hands of such a powerful being would make this journey through the material world worthwhile. To Zhang Yi's surprise, after his time-space death, he heard his voice in his ear. He saw a ball of pure white light, a ball of light filled with powerful energy, suspended in midair. This surprised him somewhat, because of the core of that ether. The ether of the dead will be summoned back to the higher dimensional ether world. Only those extremely powerful beings, through their strong will, can remain in this world and not leave. Chaos, I see an interesting possibility within you. Those Star Clan members spent countless years chasing after something they never managed to achieve. Perhaps you will become that creator. Let me lend you my power as well. As soon as he finished speaking, the purest source power, which shared the same attribute as Zhang Yi, directly merged into Zhang Yi's body. Zhang Yi absorbed this power, but it did not produce the antagonistic feeling that gave him a headache, because the source of all the opponents he had killed before would strongly reject him when he absorbed it. He had to spend a lot of time adapting to it, just like the body adapts to a new organ. But the timeline died willingly, and surprisingly chose to merge with Zhang Yi. Both powers pertain to time and space, and both are among the top-tier existences of the Black Knights, making the fusion of their sources even smoother and more natural. Zhang Yi felt as if his brain had been enlightened. A very pure and clear power surged into my consciousness. His superpower index rose rapidly, instantly increasing from 65,000 points to 68,000 points. Chapter 2929, Creating Gods. It is important to know that the further one progresses in the cultivation of extraordinary individuals, the more difficult it becomes, especially when approaching the critical threshold of the queen level. Each point of increase in the extraordinary index is more difficult than increasing it by 1,000 points for a chariot-level extraordinary person, because there is a natural barrier called the super-universe. It means a complete understanding of one's own power, transcending the power rules that are prevalent in the current universe. If you can't grasp this point, no matter how much essence you absorb, You won't be able to transform it into your own power. So when Zhang Yi received the gift of time and space, his improvement was unparalleled. He closed his eyes, and fragments of memories from different times and spaces vaguely flashed through his mind. He saw the most brilliant civilization of the Star Clan billions of years ago. Through those fragmented memories, he suddenly realized the truth about the Starry Sky Clan's creation of the wild puppet. What they are trying to create is not some ultimate being, but a god who transcends everything. Zhang Yi was shocked. That was the Star Clan's true objective. What they saw in front of the Starry Sky Corridor was nothing more than the prelude to that grand experiment. The truly terrifying entity lies at the deepest part of the Starry Sky Corridor. What they envied was not the Ihen race, who possessed extremely high intelligence and spirituality. Instead, they possessed bodies that even the Creator could not destroy and were powerful enough to shape the world. The Druk gods, they even had a crazy plan to transform the entire race into such beings. At that time, even the Creator would be unable to control them. They're a bunch of lunatics. No wonder the Creator went to the trouble of destroying them all. Zhang Yi took a deep breath, having no time to think about those things. The moment of his death in time and space, only fragmented parts of his memories remained. Within the infinite sword domain, Zhang Yi closed his eyes and slowly absorbed the remaining power. From his last thoughts in time and space, he didn't feel any hatred, but rather a sense of relief. His last thought was that he would finally return to Meta and reunite with his family. This made Zhang Yi think deeply. I keep striving forward so that I can break free from the constraints of my birth chart and live a good life. If one day, all the people around him die, leaving him all alone, what's the point of living a long life? Although there are legends that say there are immortal beings in this world, even the Drucker clan was wiped out, leaving only 7 of their strongest kings. When the dragon race of the was as powerful as the star race, how many of the have survived to this day? The ways of heaven are unpredictable, and they impose absolute constraints on every individual. It does not allow anyone to disrupt the balance within this ecosystem, just as researchers in a laboratory would not allow any disruptive bacteria to exist in a petri dish. To truly take control of your destiny, you must reach the Omega level. Only in that way can one gain a sliver of hope. A resolute glint flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. I will definitely become an Omega. It took about half an hour. Yang Xinxin and the others were waiting on the other side, starting to get a little anxious. Many people, including Shunfeng and Luo Qiao, have even begun to worry about Zhang Yi's safety. Shunfeng said, "Does Chaos have the confidence to kill that desolate puppet's commander?" Although he could indeed deal with ordinary Arapuji, it was the feeling of time and space that made him far stronger than those ordinary Arapuji. Upon hearing this, Yang Xinxin, who was holding Huahua in her arms and gently stroking it, revealed a faint smile on her lips. There was no worry about Zhang Yi in her eyes, only trust. She said to the others, "Don't worry, there won't be any suspense in this battle. My brother will definitely win." After all, this extermination operation was something they devised together. Rather, the longer it lasts, the more Yang Xinxin's inner self is exposed. That means their judgment was correct. The space-time was indeed a Type 2 Aragu. Just as everyone was discussing this, it was as if a curtain had been lifted from the space. Zhang Yi raised his hand, parted a corner of the space, and slowly walked out. When everyone saw Zhang Yi, their expressions remained unchanged. His armor was spotless and without any cracks, which finally made them smile with relief. "Thank goodness you got out safely. How was it? Was that guy really a wild puppet?" "Some people still don't quite believe it," Zhang Yi said calmly. "He is indeed a desolate puppet." In their civilization, this type of wild puppet commander is called Type 2 Wild Puppet. They selected individuals from among the Star Clan with strong flesh-blood fusion abilities and implanted Drukian flesh-blood cores into their bodies. This allows it to possess intelligence and control a type of wild golem group. However, this experiment is very dangerous, with a success rate of only 30%. The experimental subjects were devoured by the flesh and blood of the Druckers and died. Therefore, These beings, according to Jiangmun, are the last remaining individuals of the Star Clan, biological weapons. Shunfeng and Luo Qiao stared intently at Zhang Yi, their faces filled with doubt. Shunfeng stared at Zhang Yi and asked, "Chaos, we know you hold a lot back from us, but I'm really curious. How exactly did you kill him? Including the Type 2 Araga you killed before. If we were to encounter this, we'd probably have to run away." Zhang Yi smiled slightly. "There are some secrets I really won't tell you. But don't be discouraged, I only needed a little help." These words are the truth. Without the spiritual energy to enhance his sword, Zhang Yi's own power would be extremely difficult to kill those Type 2 wild puppets, in terms of time and space. Even if he couldn't absorb Zhang Yi's netherworld power, he still had a chance to escape. The two are roughly equal in strength. Okay, don't dwell on these issues. We have arrived at the place we wanted to reach. As for what comes next, he turned around, facing the deep space formed by countless data streams. We're about to explore the true secrets of the experimental star. Zhang Yi looked at Professor Da Vinci, Liu Yanran, and others. How has your research been going during our time fighting? If I'm not mistaken, this place should be extremely dangerous. The purpose of the timeline at that time was clearly to lead me deeper into this deep space. Therefore, I suspect there is some kind of murderous intent involved. Professor Leonardo da Vinci and Liu Yanran stepped forward and said, "The amount of information in this place is too much for our current level of technology to fully analyze. However, you are right. We can sense that there is indeed some kind of material destruction device inside. If we were to rush in, we risked our lives." Chapter 2930 Experimental Star Core. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. Then what should I do? Just then, a voice rang in Zhang Yi's ear, or rather, in everyone's ear. A cold, mechanical voice. "What you should do now is leave here immediately. I will release a guiding signal to make those Type 1 desolate puppets make way for you, ensuring your safe departure. You have half an hour. If you remain here after half an hour, I will launch a plan to destroy the entire experimental planet and utterly destroy everything here." Liu Karen's eyes lit up, and he said, "This is the artificial intelligence system of the experimental star. Everything we do should be seen by the eyes of the people." Zhang Yi shrugged. "There's nothing we can do. After all, we're on their turf." Fatty Sue swallowed hard. "Boss, what should we do now?" "No matter what, we're inside someone else's belly now. We're not Sun Wukong, and she's not Princess Iron Fan." Zhang Yi glanced at Fatty Sue, rolled his eyes, and said, "Then just remember not to spit in other people's stomachs. Having already taken this step, there's no reason for me to leave. Furthermore, I believe that the other side did not kill us. Otherwise, they would have acted long ago and would not have waited until now. An experimental planet whose defenses were breached by Longzi and his group is not enough to pose a threat." However, Zhang Yi did not take any action. As I always say, professional matters should be left to professionals. He spoke with Yang Xinxin via a neural connection device. "Everything ahead is unknown. We shouldn't just go in casually. Are all those arrangements you made before now being put into practice?" They weren't traveling fast because Zhang Yi was constantly gathering intelligence along the way to ensure a steady progress. Moreover, Yang Xinxin also planted Trojans in those damaged information networks during the journey. A charming smile appeared on Yang Xinxin's lips. "Of course. Now I have infiltrated every area of the experimental planet except for the core area. With just a snap of my fingers, I can put the entire planet out of the fire instantly." After Yang Xinxin finished speaking, she closed her eyes and began to activate her Trojan horse. She doesn't need any equipment because her powers can change the fundamental rules of the world out of thin air. You could even say that she herself is a super quantum computer. She slowly raised her fair, delicate hands and danced in the air as if playing the piano. What gushed forth from her fingertips were extremely fine, mosaic-like fragments of rules. Meanwhile, the wedge she had previously planted in the planet's network system began to operate, frantically invading the entire planet. In no time at all, Yang Xinxin severed the connection between the control center and the outside world one by one. Zhang Yi and the others could see that the data stream in midair suddenly became extremely fast. Rays of different colors shot out in all directions, but they seemed to hit an insurmountable shield wall and dissipated in midair. In their unseen virtual binary world, everything exists in the format of zeros and ones. Countless mosaics exist in both black and white. The white color symbolizes the experimental satellite's own control system. The black mosaic represents the Trojan horse army controlled by Yang Xinxin. On this battlefield, the two sides engaged in an extremely fierce battle. Ultimately, however, Yang Xinxin completely overwhelmed the control center's network system with an overwhelming advantage. After all, it is not an impregnable fortress. The Ziqing Center, whose defense system had been largely destroyed by Bai Longzi and his group, was already struggling to cope with the invasions from all directions by various races. Faced with Yang Xinxin, a super hacker who possesses enough influence to affect the rules of the world, the Smart Center was finally too late and suffered a complete defeat. The moment Yang Xinxin opened her eyes, the flow of information in front of her suddenly slowed down. The Dawn River no longer roams wildly, but flows slowly in its usual direction, like the quiet Dawn River. That's enough. I have completely seen through this starry sky. After Yang Xinxin finished speaking, she took the lead and walked into the endless, deep space ahead. Seeing this, Zhang Yi quickly followed suit. The entire team filed in, filled with a mix of trepidation and joy, to witness the most crucial secret of the experimental planet. Yang Xinxin said to them, "I have only seen through the algorithm of this area, but the crisis has not been completely resolved. You must stay close behind me and not take a wrong step. Otherwise, there could be great danger." Hearing Yang Xinxin's warning, the others also became extremely vigilant and followed closely behind her. Looking at the regularly flowing information around them, Zhang Yi asked Yang Xinxin, "What would happen if we were touched by these things?" "But it can be flashed," Yang Xinxin said jokingly. "Flashing the firmware?" "Yes, existence that has been redefined. For example, it might fight you for control of your body, forcing you to cut off an arm to survive." Shun Feng complained, "If it's so dangerous, why not just shut it down?" A sly glint flashed in Yang Xinxin's eyes, like a dark tide flowing. "Because we're not the only teams that come to this place." Shun Feng, Luo Qiao, and the others exchanged glances, and suddenly realized what was going on. Others have already come into contact with the deepest secrets, so there's no need for them to pave the way for those people. After all, their journey hasn't been easy, so let's just wish them good luck. In fact, Yang Xinxin's prediction was completely correct. After they entered the experimental planet, they did not receive any special treatment. Every team that entered this area was attacked by the Aragu. 2 of the 10 Type 2 wild puppets have locked onto them. However, other wild puppets also pose a great threat to other alien groups. Some groups were even more unlucky and weaker, and all the strong ones on this trip were wiped out here. It can be said that even a team with Black Knight-level strength can still put up a fight against the wild puppet. If there is no Black Knight in the team, encountering the Type 2 wild puppet will only result in total annihilation. Even when faced with a large number of Type 1 wild puppet, very few people are able to escape. As the tides turned, more and more people died on the experimental planet. However, those who survived also gained something more or less.
Alright, that's it for today's chapter. Tell me in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. If you love manga style stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe the Buzz Play Manga. See you in the next chapter with more surprises.